well, in the broadest economic sense of improving consumer well-being, which is really what economics is supposed to be about, the question of whether smoking should be consigned to history depends entirely on what people's preferences are. And so long as it's just one person who wants to smoke, possibly you, Claire, could be the last person standing, it should not be consigned to history. Whether it will be consigned to history, I think, is a more interesting question in a way. Simon just mentioned that people have been smoking for thousands of years. The death of smoking has been predicted several times in history and has never come about. If you know anything about alcohol prohibition, you may be familiar with the Anti-Saloon League. Less famous is the Anti-Cigarette League, which came along just after prohibition, actually, a classic example of the slippery slope. But their motto, their slogan was "A smoke-free America by 1925." Surgeon General Koop in 1986 had the slogan of "A smoke-free America by 2000 AD." This keeps getting pushed back and back and back. It's never really happened. Samuel Johnson in the 18th century, when snuff was becoming very, very popular, he said that smoking's nearly died out. What's gone on? Turned out that the English aristocracy were copying the French trend of using snuff, and that came abruptly to an end in 1789 when Robespierre started going around slaughtering the French aristocracy, and French customs suddenly became rather less popular. So it's been predicted many times. There's been times when it seemed plausible that it would happen. On the other hand, the cigarette itself, if we're just talking about cigarettes, I think it makes it a little bit more realistic. I mean, people, I think, will always smoke cigars from time to time, at the very least. The cigarette has only really been popular for just over a century. It is quite possible that with vaping and IQOS type products and anything else that's in the works, smoking could be not consigned to history, but become a very small niche minority pursuit. The daily smoking rate in Sweden, where they use smokeless tobacco, is now 5%, and it's been dropping like a stone, and they may well go down to 1 or 2% quite conceivably in the next decade. It's conceivable smoking could go down to something like 5% in the next 20 years in Britain. It will not be consigned to history, however. It may well become on the verge of obsolescence as a result of the carrot of harm reduction and the stick of punitive anti-smoking regulation, but there will always be some people who choose to smoke cigarettes or pipes or cigars or whatever it may be. You can look out for other kind of examples. People talk about the Kodak moment with e-cigarettes. Well, there are still some people who use old-fashioned analog photographic equipment and film, and probably always will be. CDs have been around for 30 years, but vinyl is doing very well these days. More people buying vinyl than have done for a long time. The motor car was supposed to get rid of horses, but clearly horses are not as popular a mode of transport as they once were, but people still ride horses. So this, I think if you've got something that's been consumed very happily by many people for thousands of years, the idea that it's going to just disappear by any means is quite implausible. And there is a very good reason why the cigarette has been fantastically popular for 100 years. It's an extremely efficient and pleasurable nicotine delivery device. So I don't think it will be consigned to history in probably our lifetimes, but more importantly, I don't think it should be, so long as there's anybody in the world who wants to smoke.